Welcome to the best practices call. This is being recorded, so if you continue to participate, you are acknowledging that it's being recorded. So congratulations to Silos and Smokestacks on 25 years as a National Heritage Area. That's quite an accomplishment. Candy and Jory are going to present today and share a little bit of a look at how they celebrated their 25th year and share about some of the highlights. And Kara Miller is also here as the Executive Director of the National Heritage Area. So I'll let whoever's going to start get going. Take it away.
I'll just start briefly to introduce Candy and Jory and to let you know kind of our process and what we did. Jory really took leadership on this as Director of our Communications and Marketing. So she's got a wonderful PowerPoint that she'll share with you. And then Candy was heavily involved because we chose to take the opportunity at 25 years to kind of assess ourselves and look at, where we might make improvements or, changes or, whatever, kind of a state of the state look at ourselves. So Candy did a lot of that work, and hopefully she'll talk a little bit about that process. And Candy is our Director of Partnerships. So I will turn it over to Jory to get us started.
Hi, everybody. Let me get my screen share up here. Can we all see that? And can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. I'll just start by saying that we started our whole 25th anniversary process by putting together a planning committee with our board of trustees and staff. And our first task was to talk about how we wanted to present the celebration and what we were going to call it and how we were going to share it with people. And we have some really talented and creative people on our board of trustees that helped us come up with a theme of collaborate, educate, celebrate. And we created a great logo for it that we shared across to all of our marketing materials and throughout our headquarters and at our partner sites for the year. We were a little disappointed. COVID got in the way a little bit. We had some big ideas that we had to sort of table or move through because there were some restrictions that wouldn't allow us to do those. But I still feel like we were able to celebrate and find different ways and creative ways to engage people throughout the year. The first thing we did to get our partner sites involved was to create a promotional kit for all of our heritage area sites. It included tabletop signage, and some of our bigger sites got retractable banners, buttons for all of their volunteers and staff to wear, new signage and window clings, schedules. And I'll talk about it a little bit later, but we created a stamp for each site celebrating the 25th anniversary. So along with that promotional kit that we mailed to everyone, we also had an online media kit that we could direct them to if they wanted to participate in events, or if they wanted to send out the press release to their local media, even though we did send it out statewide and region-wide. But that way they could feel like they were a part of it and take part in it, and they didn't have to come to us every time they needed something, and we already had plans in place for them. We did a training with them, a brief training via Zoom in the spring, so they knew what was coming at them and they could expect it and they knew how to implement everything. We created a new visitor guide. We do our visitor guide every other year. It's got a 2-year shelf life, and it just so happened that we were able to land our next one right at our 25th anniversary. So we took the opportunity to completely redesign the inside of our visitor guide. It's a booklet, like a magazine. And we included a special message from Kara, history of our organization. We had historical photos, we had new photos. We got all our sites on board to update their listings. Sometimes it's hard to get them to do that, but we got them to do that and update photos. The one thing that we were really excited about, and we kind of didn't know how it would go over, was a stamp challenge. We created a 25th anniversary stamp challenge, and in our center spread, we had a page where visitors could visit sites and get their book stamped. Each of our sites got a special 25th anniversary stamp. It had that logo, and then it actually has their site name on the stamp. And the first 25 visitors to get their guide stamped and send it back to us received a nice little swag bag surprise from us. It went off better than we thought it did. Our sites got really, really excited about it. And surprisingly, we engaged a younger audience than what we expected. We had, girl groups and ladies on girls' weekends going out and trying to get their guides stamped, and people looking for us. And we got a lot of calls of people looking for the next nearest place that they could get their book stamped. So it worked out really great for us, and we've decided to continue it on. We're going to let our sites keep those 25th anniversary stamps, and then in a few years, we'll update them for everyone as we go. So that was a big win for us.
Jory, I think this also helped a little bit of a challenge we have, which is we have sites that, want to carry the cancellation stamp for the National Park Service and the passport, but they may not be the ideal site for that. And so this was a way for them to still feel like they're participating. So, and also the cancellation stamp people were excited for this additional stamp as well.
I'm sure, much like many of you, we have a real variety of partners in our heritage area. Some are very large and some are very small. And this really encouraged the people visiting the large sites. It gave them a real reason to maybe drive a mile down the road and go visit those smaller sites as well. And there's a lot of hidden gems that people didn't think about and had a good time visiting through that program. This was a real simple task. We wanted to get kids involved somehow, and we really wanted moms and dads to have to bring their kids to our headquarters and get a peek of what we do here, and maybe send them out on their way and engage them with some heritage area facts as well as some agricultural facts. So we created a coloring contest. We had 3 age divisions. We ran it at the top of the tourism season, the beginning of June. We awarded winners in each age category. We had hard copy sheets available in the office, and we had them available online as well. We also had them available for our partner sites if they wanted to host a simultaneous coloring contest in conjunction with ours on their own. They could use our sheets, or they could create their own. Something unique about our coloring sheets was that since we had a variety of ages, we had a variety of sheets, but some of the sheets we have a photo contest that we run every year that's very popular. And we got permission to use some of those winning photos and outline them and turn them into a coloring sheet. So some of those entries were very interesting and creative, and we had a really good time with that. The other thing to note is that when our winners came in to pick up their prizes, they were invited to come back for our picnic, which our 25th anniversary picnic that we'll come back to later. So that drove some attendance at that event as well. We wanted to find a way to create content through our partner sites, our heritage area sites, and engage them rather than just a lot of our partner sites will send us events to share, which is great, but we really want to know what's happening around the heritage area day to day. So we initiated a Tuesday takeover throughout the year of our 25th anniversary, and our partner sites signed up to take over our Instagram page on Tuesdays, and they were allowed to share unlimited stories and photos. It was very popular. We gained a lot of followers through it that we hadn't expected to gain before, a whole new audience. And we created and generated some really great content that we can continue to use and post across our other social media platforms. We also had this big idea we were going to do an agricultural antiques roadshow, but COVID put a damper on that. So we created a social media program for Facebook called What in the Ag Is This, and asked our partner sites to submit photos of unique agricultural objects in their collection with a description. We posted them on Wednesday and allowed the public to guess what they were or what they were used for, and then reposted them on Thursday with the answer. So that was some fun and unique ways that we engaged both our heritage area sites and the public on social media to get them excited about our anniversary and what's happening in the heritage area. Finally, we can't have an anniversary without a party, and we partied all summer long. We took advantage. They were smaller, intimate parties than what we'd hoped, but it was really, for a lot of them, the first time that people got to see each other in person, face to face. So it was almost emotional to be able to see some of our friends in person again. We kicked off the summer with a ribbon cutting of our headquarters. It was our soft opening. We had local media and our ambassadors and the chambers and the visitor center, as well as state and federal legislators attend, and city government officials as well. So that was our soft opening, our ribbon cutting for our headquarters. Has anyone heard of Ragbrai? It's a real thing in Iowa. It is the annual Great Bike Ride across Iowa. There's around 30,000 participants that dip their back tire of their bike in the Missouri River, spend 7 days riding their bikes across Iowa, and dip their front tire in the Mississippi. It's a big deal around here. If you're a cyclist, we encourage you to come visit us and attend, but all the stars aligned, and Ragbrai went through Waterloo in July of 2021. And it just so happened that the main events tent was right next door to us. So we collaborated and managed to celebrate both Ragbrai and our 25th anniversary. A thing with the riders is once they arrive in town, I can't imagine riding my bike for 40 miles and then coming to a town and wanting to ride it all around that town, but that's what they do. And they want to see things. So we created our own ride and created maps, and we called it the Ag Ride. So once riders arrived in town, they stopped and visited us. They could pick up that map and then ride around to the heritage area sites within Cedar Falls and Waterloo and visit. We had a lot of swag to hand out for them. We invited a lot of people into our headquarters, since we hadn't really got to have the general public there. And it was a really good time. It was a long day. It was a 12-hour day, but we met a lot of people and talked to a lot of people. The biggest lesson from that is if you're celebrating something and there's another event happening, don't be afraid to piggyback, and don't be afraid to collaborate with the planners of those events, and you can celebrate together. It's absolutely possible. You don't have to keep it separate. Finally, our big party was our 25th anniversary picnic and grand opening to the public. We're lucky enough that there's an events plaza right across the street from our office. And so we had our grand opening to the public, and also simultaneously had a picnic across the street with live music. We had games, we had trivia, we gave out a lot of swag. We had a really, really good time. And it just so happened that those two events, Ragbrai and our picnic, were within 3 days of each other. So we partied really hard the third week of July. I'm going to pass it on to Candy now to talk about MOU signings.
Hi, everybody. Well, Jory and our colleague who's on maternity leave right now, Eileen, really did a fantastic job putting together the 25th anniversary marketing materials and gave it a cohesive feel and look to it. And I think the partner sites that we work with really appreciated having some quality tools to work with. And then, not only were we a glutton for punishment, to be out in the hottest day, she didn't mention, it was the hottest day of the year at Ragbrai. And we literally had to take shifts going outside when it was so hot. We'd have to each take turns being outside because it was so unbearable. But yet the Ragbrai folks, it didn't seem to slow them down. So I could go on about how awesome those guys, that the work that Jory and others did to make this easy. You know, goodness, we were a glutton for punishment. So we continued our tour across the heritage area the week of August 1st through the 7th. It is the hottest, usually, you know, week of the year, and we toured and met in our key communities of the heritage area to renew our partnerships with the sites that we've been working with for the last 25 years. And this is, as Kara mentioned, a continuation of a process we've been working on for the last, at that time, you know, 2-3 years, where we have been revisiting every site that we have hold an agreement with to talk about what are their needs as we move forward in the next 25 years. What have been some of the most beneficial things being a part of the heritage area, and then how can we work together into the future? I've done a presentation on that, and I think you have it archived. I don't need to go into that detail, but this really was such a great moment for all of us. And I don't know if how well you could see the pictures there and how much fun we had at each location, but we had over 70 sites participate in the communities of Waterloo. We kicked it off at the picnic here in Waterloo, and then into Hampton, Decorah, Dubuque, Cedar Rapids, and Urbandale, which is basically, we kind of hit every little corner of the heritage area. And at that time, you can see there's a pledge of partnership. We renewed our pledge to work together to tell the story of American agriculture. And it was so, I don't know how to describe it. It's just so impressive for me. I've been with the organization a long time, and to go down each side of the table and just quickly highlight all their contributions they make to the importance of agriculture, to our history, our nation's history, and to be able to say, thank you for the work that you do, and that we stood together as staff, as board members, as sites, to pledge to continue this work together. It was a very powerful moment. The media came out at nearly every location, and we got a lot of great local coverage, which is really important as we are moving into reauthorization as a national heritage area. And it was those moments, seeing us collectively together, that is powerful. Together we are, it was just a powerful moment to see what we can do together to preserve our American agricultural heritage and celebrate it as we move forward.
I'm sorry, Candy, if I can just interject for a moment too, just for clarity for folks. This picture, this pledge of partnership, was a document that was kind of an informal document that they signed there at these pledging partnerships.
Yep, and I'm going to explain that.
Detailed memorandum of understanding with each of these partner sites that they then did a follow-up, sign that and had to return that back in. So I just want you to know that the MOU that they signed is much more complicated than this pledge here, but this pledge was like a ceremonial formal thing that I think the sites really enjoyed seeing and having and doing. So, it's a little more colorful and interesting than the 3 or 4 page document that they had to officially sign.
Well, and I was going to share that, yes, we did a ceremonial signing, because each of the sites then were given their packet to go back and review the memorandum of understanding and what the expectations are for them as a site, and what Silos and Smokestacks would provide that we're committed to providing as we move forward. And so they need to they're required to review that with their whatever organization that might be, if it's a county government, or if it's a nonprofit, they would review it with their board. But the idea is that we don't want just one person knowing about the relationship they have with the heritage area, that it needs to be the organization collectively. And so, yes, this is a ceremonial signing, the Pledge of Partnership, but then there's a much more detailed document that they review and sign. So I think for us, it was really, a time to kind of build up some awareness about the heritage area. And, I really, the local press and kind of keeping that going, and the work that Jory did with the social media really gave us a lot of exposure. And using the 25th anniversary celebration as a way to couch that conversation. So I don't know, Jory, if you have anything else you want to contribute, or Kara, but that really kind of concludes what we had to share. I know that our other colleagues from Ohio and Erie Canal aren't able to be on the call today.
We have one thing we want to share. One more thing. We worked with actually student interns at the local, well, not student interns, but they were college students at the University of Northern Iowa, to create a 25th anniversary video. And that's how we sort of culminated the end of the year. We released this at the beginning of December to wrap up our celebration. And I'm going to attempt to share it with you. If it doesn't work, I'll put a link in the chat, and you can all view it later.
While Jory's pulling that up, I would just add, and if it starts, Jory, go ahead. I can hold my comments till it's done. But I think it's important for all of us to remember that a celebration of a 25th anniversary is the opportunity to really look forward, not to spend a lot of time focusing on the past. And we talked about that. Yes, we celebrate how we started and where we were, but all of our messaging was celebrating that past and looking forward to what's coming next. And we had lots of conversations with our sites about our next 25 years, where we're going to go in the future, and really use this as an opportunity to build that, as well as with the board. I really encourage them to be thinking about, what are we going to do in the next 25 years? This just happened to also coincide with rewriting our strategic plan, which the first one ended in 21. And so we rewrote another one for 22 through 25 and really focused on that as well. So I think a lot of times people celebrate an anniversary and only focus on where they've been. But if you're leaving out where you're going from that, I think you miss an opportunity.
All right, we'll see if it works.
Silos and Smokestacks has such a variety of stories to tell that there is something for everybody. This is our 25th anniversary year, so we've existed for 25 years as a National Heritage Area. Silos and Smokestacks started here in Waterloo with a group of people that we refer to as the Kitchen Table 7. It was folks who were very concerned in the 1980s about the farm crisis and what was happening to the economy, and we're looking at ways to really enhance the economy in the area. And this is a farm community. I always say we all eat. We all need agriculture. If you ate today, thank a farmer. The clothes we're wearing, the cars, the gas we put in our cars, all is related to agriculture. So everyone, no matter where they live, whether they're in a rural setting or a large, big city, agriculture is important to them. And our mission is to help people understand and know that. It doesn't matter who you are, you need agriculture. Silos and Smokestacks National Heritage Areas is structured around having partner sites. And it's at those partner sites that the story of agriculture gets told. So we have right now 115 partner sites within the heritage area borders, and each one of those sites tells a unique story about agriculture. From large stories that tell a significant story that most people would have heard about, to some very small stories and some actual current farms where people can actually go and see, what it's like to milk a cow, or where do those products come from. That's how we as a heritage area function. Throughout its history, Silos and Smokestacks National Heritage Area has been associated with the National Park Service. We are funded through Congress. I like to say we're funded by the American people. There are 55 National Heritage Areas around the country. All of them tell a different story. As I said, we are the only National Heritage Area in the state of Iowa, and the only one that tells a story of agriculture. We're looking at our next 25 years here at Silos and Smokestacks National Heritage Area. After celebrating our 25th anniversary, we are really taking an eye to the future. What's next for us? What are some of the stories that may not get told? There's always something new and interesting in ag, and we want to make sure that we're capturing those stories. And we encourage people to come in here to our headquarters, which is at 305 West Park Avenue in Waterloo, and to really look around and see where they can go to hear a different story and what they can learn about agriculture.
Jory, I think there were some questions about whether or not we can share our MOUs and our pledge of partnership. And I can do that. I also think, and Katie or Heather, Liz, someone did we record that in one of the sessions? And then I thought I had given those handouts up, but I'm not 100% on that, but I can resend those to you. I can also briefly share my screen if someone wants to see what the MOU looks like.
We do have it on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and listen to it. We don't have the documents up there for,
okay,
can't embed them, but no, we do have a copy of when we did a thing on partnerships.
Yeah. So if I share my screen just briefly, you can see and see there's the 25th anniversary logo by design. We include that on and each of the organizations that we work with had to sign, as well as Kara signed for our organization. Basically, it talks about what Silos will provide, marketing and public relations materials. We talked about how we would continue to facilitate dialogue between in-person site reviews, because we felt like that was something in our evaluation we did previously, that there's so much staff changeover and volunteer changeover in our organizations that it was critical to keep that communication in person open, not just electronic. And then, obviously we do a lot of what I would consider capacity building for our partner site organizations. So that's reflected in the bullets of what Silos provide, ranging from professional development opportunities to educational programming, market and matching funds, and of course, networking is probably the greatest strength that we have, is the network of sites. But each site is then asked to make sure that they continue to preserve and interpret the story of agriculture at their site and facilities. That site staff and board will, be a part of it in a site review, an in-person site review, that they will show their affiliation being part of the heritage area. They have to have outdoor signage and indoor signage. And there's some other things that we do with that. Also, as a good partner, you need to promote the heritage area as well as your other sites that you work with. we have an annual training that we would like them to attend. We don't say that it's required every year, but we encourage it at least every other year. As well as then submitting annual updates and then providing orientation for their staff and volunteers. So there's a variety of things that this is just a kind of a simplified list of things that we each agree to do, but within that there's a lot. So there's that, and I will send that on to Katie and you guys can have a copy of it. All right.
I also shared, Candy, I shared your email and
Great.
your email in the chat too. So if
You want them just to email me for a copy?
I think
Okay.
so, because then it's your, I think that's a nice way to connect with you too. And that's one of the goals.
That's fine. I'm happy to do that.
As you know, in the Midwest region, when you guys started these calls, the point was really to connect staff in heritage areas with each other so that you had this collaborative network of folks to work with. And because these ideas really do work so well for other heritage areas, and you guys with 25 years under your belt have a lot of experience to share and really good ideas. Are there other questions about the events? I love how you connected with so many people and the bike event, and all the different ways to, really collaborate. I want to do, I see in the color in the chat too, is a link to the video and the coloring sheets. I know my mother just recently, unfortunately, hurt herself, fractured her pelvis. And one of the things they're having her do in the rehab facility is color. So that's a thing that maybe hadn't thought about, that rehab facilities and maybe nursing homes or other places might want to color. Could do a reach out to those groups as an opportunity.
There's a whole therapeutic strategy around it. So it's a whole other thing. But I wanted to ask a question, as your little brothers here at the Motor Cities National Heritage Area, we're right behind you, and our 25th anniversary is next year. So there's a lot of sort of ideas swirling around for us about how to manage it. And I love, Kara, what you were saying about the strategic planning. And could you talk a little bit more about that? So, I mean, was there sort of a real process in engaging and listening to partners and planning that out, or was it just a coincidence that, hey, we've got to, we got to create a new strategic plan and we're celebrating our anniversary, so we're engaging them anyway? Because that's what we're thinking, is that we really are going back to, I don't want to say general management plan level, but we're going back to, thinking about community meetings and really thinking, what have you gotten out of Motor Cities and what do you want to get out of us, as we move forward?
That's a very good point. We have always had a strategic plan. It is part of the requirement, that, as we understand, to always be on file with the Park Service.
Right.
So we really started looking, when I first came in 2015, we had to redo a strategic plan right then. So we redid that strategic plan. It was really board members talking through. And it was really a great process for me to really learn what the goals and the strategy and how that connected to the management plan. This time around, we really focused, as I said, on the future, where we want to be. We did not engage partner sites in that, but we did gather a lot of information that Candy pulled together when she was doing evaluations of the partner sites. And that started, was it 2018? Yeah, 2018, we started doing that. And it took us 3 years to complete that. We have a lot of sites, and I think she still has just a handful left that we're still trying to meet with. But as a part of that process with those sites, we gleaned information about what they felt needed to be improved, what they wanted to see us do differently, those kinds of things. So we had that information and were aware of that when we started building the strategic plan with the board, and staff was in that process as well. So as a result of that, with these evaluations, then we really sat down and we looked at it from kind of a different perspective. I always think of strategic plans as more aspirational. The goal, people get down to, oh, what are our goals and our strategies and whatever. I think of it as, what is our aspirations? Where do we want to be? What do we want to get to? And so we named them as that. This is our aspiration for the next 5 years. And these are the results that we want to get if we reach that aspiration. So we looked at it from a different perspective from that. So then everything that the staff does then is driven by those aspirations and those results that we want to get. So it drives our work as well as gives the board something to look at and say, you know, to put a pin in, are we doing that? You know, are we going to get to that result? Those kind of things. And so it was a combination of all of that. But I think it's a great process to do. It's a great excuse to do when you're at your 25th, and, you know, to start now and say, hey, we're going to do this so we can be thinking about where we're going to be in the next 25 years. And to ask them to put that cap on, say, okay, we're looking at this plan long term. We know that for a strategic plan, you know, really 5 years is a lot, but even 3 years. But if you're not thinking way down the line, you know, what you're doing now isn't going to be that, you know, change effective anyway. You're just going to keep doing the same old little thing if you're not really looking at a long term, where do we want to be in the next 25 years? So did that answer your question?
No, I mean, you know, great insight. And like I said, we continue to learn, sit at the learning tree, you know, learn so many things from you all and what you do, and including, you know, sample stuff. Candy and I have exchanged this stuff over the years as far as samples about the engagement with the partners. It's always important to be looking to update and best practices on that. So always a pleasure.
I have a quick question about the planning of your anniversary year. How far in advance did you start, and who led that?
Jory, do you want to take that? You mentioned a little bit at the beginning how we did that. Do you want to repeat that?
Well, we had, of course, intended to start it much earlier than we did, but there was a little virus that took over. And so we had to table it a bit. We started meeting virtually with our planning committee in June 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And for that summer, we were really kicking around ideas of what we could do. Well, like, we had a list of things that we really, really wanted to do. And then as the year went, we sort of narrowed it down that way.
Okay.
And we really, it was a wait and see of what would we be able to do.
Yeah. Sure. Okay.
And as Jory had mentioned before, we did engage the board early on in the process to be thinking through what they wanted to do and what they wanted to accomplish. I think that's important to get their engagement.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. Mm-hmm.
If I could do one thing that we had planned to do that we didn't get to do in terms of planning, was we have an annual training with our heritage area sites every year in April. And of course it got canceled in April 2020. But the plan for that was we had time set aside really to brainstorm with them, things that we could do throughout the heritage area. And we didn't get to do that, of course, because of COVID. And so we did pull them electronically if they had ideas or things, or how they would like to participate. But I think we probably would have gotten a lot more out of it if we could have done it in person. More ideas.
I don't know if you noticed, many of our activities were outdoors. Design.
I mean, it seemed like it blended perfectly because you're agriculture and because of what you celebrate, the kind of partners you have. I mean,
We got lucky on the weather.
okay.
Yeah, we got lucky.
Yeah.
I think there was one day it rained and we were inside. That's the only one day we were inside at the African American Museum of Iowa. So.
No, it seemed to align perfectly. Everything that you were saying and stuff you said in the video, I just replaced agriculture with automotive, and I'm thinking about ways we could apply it here because it seemed to work out pretty well.
Yeah.
Strategy. It wasn't overblown, because one of the things we did on our 20th anniversary, we had a big gala, and it was like the whole thing was built around that, building up to that. Whereas this felt like you took it to the people a little more effectively and really engaged them a lot more. And that's the strategy. Makes a lot more sense for us on 25th to not make it about us and, like Kara said, looking back, but more about looking forward in partnership.
So I have a question about the picnic. So did you invite all of your partners and or is it like a general, anybody could come? Like, were there tickets? Like how, so what was the invitation list for the picnic? I'm just curious.
It was a community-wide event, and we did do a direct mail piece to our general mail list and to all of our partner sites, but we promoted throughout the general community in which our headquarters are located, Waterloo and Cedar Falls, with radio, not television, radio, social media, and news media, print media. Of course, all of our partner sites were invited, and we even offered them all the opportunity to have an informational booth and bring an activity. But it just so happened that that week there was a surge, a COVID surge in Iowa, and a lot of them were unable to attend. But I think we still had around 100 in attendance, and which was the reason that we ended up planning it outdoors so that people would feel comfortable coming. But it was a public event for whomever wanted to come, since we promoted it along with our grand opening. I think I mentioned that we had trivia, and the point of the trivia was the questions led them over to our headquarters. So they would have to go through the exhibits that we had in our headquarters and then come back to the picnic.
I get that. I mean, you guys cover a large area, just like Abraham Lincoln covers a large area. And when we had an event for our 10th anniversary, we invited all of our partners from outlying communities. And some of them had to drive like over 2 or 3 hours to get there. And so some of them came, but we didn't have as many partners come as I really would have liked to have seen. And I think part of it is just the travel time. So, because people have busy lives. So I was just curious how you handled that, because you guys are spread out very similarly the way we are. And so I was just curious on how. But I like the idea of just inviting the public, because it also generates awareness in your local community that you exist.
Yeah. We struggle with that all the time, Heather. Just, I'm sure like you guys, if wherever we have an event, the sites that are close to it come, but those who have to travel farther don't. And we understand that, and we've gotten used to it. So yeah, having the community involved is really helpful and important. And I think that's why when we went to do the MOU signings, Candy very smartly said, we're going to have to spread these around, because sites aren't going to all come here and do it. I think we initially talked about just hosting them all here and doing it. And then Candy says, that's not going to work. And so we've
done that with other things in the past where we've moved them around, and those do tend to have better attendance because the local people will drive an hour or less. But if you get beyond that, they don't.
Yep. It's just the way you have to work when you got a big, square miles that you're dealing with. So
yeah. And it also puts our board members, that's the other thing. It gave us an opportunity, our board members and our other committee members and partnership panel members and site, they got to see each other face to face, where, from that region. So maybe they couldn't come to the Sunday event, but they could come to the Tuesday event. And so, and then locally in those regions, Silos, awareness about the heritage area was elevated too. And that not just elevated as Silos, the coordinating entity for the heritage area, but the collective heritage area. And that's really important messaging, because, I'm sure you all struggle. What the heck is Silos and Smokestacks anyway, and, what is a heritage area? So it really did give us a little bit of an opportunity to put it out there.
And Candy had mentioned in her part of the presentation too about the press that we got. And we wouldn't have gotten that same kind of press. Like at Waterloo, I don't think we got a whole lot of press on the day of our picnic and signing. But we go up to a smaller community up in, Decorah or up in that area, and they all turn out for it. It's a big story. So that helps us as well.
I totally agree with that. Like you get to be the important people coming from the big city of Springfield. Yeah. And then people show up because these important people from this town have come to your community.
Yeah.
I get that. I totally get that. And you're like, no, we're really not that important.
No, it's just us.
From a marketing standpoint, or a communication standpoint, I wish that we could do MOU signings every year, because the social media that we got on that, as well as press, a lot of our sites, because they were closed, had done projects over that time of being closed and had new exhibits and things that we hadn't seen and updates. So I was able to go sort of putz around, take a lot of photos and videos and post that across social media platforms that got a lot of interest too.
She did some TikToks.
I think that's an interesting point about, this was a chance for sites who had been closed, some of them for the past year, to really bring attention back to themselves as well. You know, as we were doing these signings outdoors for most of them, after a year of most people being, you know, closed in at home, not getting out. This was in August of 2021, where things had kind of, you know, taken a little bit of a step back with the virus, but it really did give people an opportunity to bring attention to themselves again after being closed and shut down for a whole year. So I think, you know, even though it was a bummer for us that COVID really affected stuff, I think doing those signings and getting out to those spots was really helpful to get them opened up again.
So certainly the closures and all those kinds of things were negative, but were there positives? And like, did you notice more people, as you said, you were doing planning in June over Zoom or over a platform like this? Did you find that maybe more people engaged because things were slowed down, that they had time to kind of think and be creative, or
I see Jory shaking her head. Yeah, do you have a thought on that, Jory?
Well, yeah, especially I think for our heritage area sites, when we put out the call that we wanted, you know, like everyday stuff that's happening at your site for those Tuesday takeovers, or when we asked for the unique objects, some of them told me that they dug into stuff that they hadn't looked at for years because they had time. And they got way back into their archives and pulled stuff out and ended up leaving it on exhibit for that reason. So I do think a lot of good came from, you know, there was some good that came from us not being able to just, like Brian said, plan a big gala and expect everyone to come to a party to us. We end up having to figure out how to take the party to them. And while it may have seemed like a lot of small things that we did, you know, a coloring contest, a Tuesday takeover, whatever, it really did have a big impact for us because we were able to reach more people. We are a big area. We're the whole northeast quarter of our state. So we were able to reach more people through, you know, the intranets, as my grandfather calls it.
Well, I think that I remember us debating, do we drag this out over a course of a month, or do we hit it hard one week and we just exhaust ourselves running around and build energy? And that's what we did. We did we kicked off with the picnic and, you know, for the partnership pledge and building and renewing our partnerships. And so doing a week of traveling around the region, just elevate, there was just this different level of energy around it and interest than if we had just spread it out and trickled it over the month of August. So, you know, I don't know if I made that clear, but I think that was an important strategy, even though it was a little grueling for staff, but it worked.
And our hope had been that we could get Chris Stein, who's our regional representative, to join us for that week. Come around and spend that and go around with us, but you know.
And Brian,
last week you guys just got travel lifted out there. So.
Well, and Brian, since who else is celebrating by raising hands? Is celebrating a big anniversary soon? Okay, okay. Yeah, that was a tough one for me to swallow, because I really wanted to re-engage the National Park Service on the ground with us, and show that was the one big piece that was physically missing from the signing ceremony, is their presence. And it was a bummer, but we made the decision we would continue. And Chris he still brings it up every time he talks to us.
Yeah, he was very
Sorry he
much
couldn't. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I was thinking when you said like the public signing of the documents, I was like, oh, you know, all the cooperative agreements that the Park Service has with every heritage area. I was like, we never do any, you know, it's like, put this into grant solutions. No, like.
I know, no prompt circumstance of it. Yeah. You know, that's a good thing, Katie. Maybe, you know, when this big reauthorization comes through, maybe we should do a big to-do about it nationwide.
Right. Even like I push to the communications office all the time to push out when we distribute the funds to heritage areas. And because it's non-competitive, they don't like to do an announcement. So like the American Battlefield Program or any of the other grant programs from the Park Service, Land and Water, whatever, pushes, it means $25 million that the Park Service is giving out to 34 states. And I'm like, and not one press release for the 10 years that I've been in this job. And, you know, then they're like, well, it's not competitive. So I'm like, but we should, you know, it's also, I think, an opportunity for the Park Service to toot their own horn that we're doing this. So just sharing my observation. But
I mean, I think that
appreciate that.
Big time. I think that's overlooked big time. That this is, at least for us, and you know, by example of that recent visit we had with the park director, there are many people in the Detroit and surrounding area that wouldn't have known that connection, even when we put it out there. That then the director of the Park Service, why would he be here? Because they don't understand the connection between all of this. So the more we could do that, the better. I mean, we should be trumpeting that all the time, because it's not obvious to a lot of people. You assume that, or your communications people are like, oh no, it's no big deal. It's a huge deal to us.
And I think it's really important too, Brian, in places that don't have big national parks, like in the state of Iowa, where, you know, we don't have any national parks here, to show that there still is the National Park Service active in our state through the heritage area. And that, you know, we have connections that way, even though there may not be a big park here. So.
Right, that's us.
right,
Well,
they were coming to Michigan to share land and water conservation grants. And I was like, money, we give it. So that's going to inspire me. I'm going to push again.
We'll push behind you. There needs to be a rally around there. I'm happy to jump on something and pile on whoever.
Thank you.
We appreciate everybody listening to our story. I know everybody's is different, and you know, but it's celebrated different ways, but thanks for letting us share and asking us to share.
Thank you. This was wonderful. Anyone else who's on the call want to ask any other questions or any comments or thoughts for the greater good of what you're planning, or other ideas? I think this is, you know, Brian, I appreciated you saying like this will help you guys with your planning. You want to keep this conversation going with other heritage areas about the ways in which they celebrated or were inspired to do other things too.
Yeah, and here at the Blue Ridge National Heritage Area, we're celebrating our 20th anniversary next year, and yay! And you know, I'm with the communications. Will lead that for the most part, as far as the events and communicating and that sort of thing. So if I have any questions, it would be great to reach out to y'all. And as it starts, I really liked your reminder that it's good to include not only your board, but also maybe your partners in the planning. That sounds so obvious now, but I hadn't thought of the partners yet. But we haven't started, so this is I'm at a good place. So thank you for today and sharing.
Well, I shared everyone, Kara and Candy and Jory's email in the chat. So if you guys want to copy that, or feel free to reach out to me and get those emails if you miss copying them. And I really do appreciate the presentation and the conversation. And in June, I can't believe it's June already. We're going to continue a conversation we started about working with the National Park Foundation and hear from Rivers of Steel and Essex National Heritage Area about some capacity building grants that the Park Foundation specifically gave out in 2020, in that time of kind of turmoil, and to build up partners of the overall the Park Service partners and a lot of the Friends communities, but 3 heritage areas got those funds in 2020. So Rivers of Steel and Essex are going to share in June. So I'll see you then.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.